withdrawal strategies are a topic that everybody wants to talk about when it comes to retirement. And if you do a quick Google search, you're going to find there are hundreds of different ideas of ways to withdraw your dollars in retirement. And also there's hundreds of opinions because nobody really knows exactly what you need for you. Though I will tell you what I am starting to find works the best for all of our clients that we have here at Jazz. And I'll go through some of the others in case maybe that you want to take some of those and work off them or realize, oh, you know what, that's not going to work for me now that you've watched this. So the first one, let's just jump in and see. This is going to be called dollar plus inflation. Now, you may have heard of this something totally different as the 4% rule. The 4% rule, super popular. A lot of people have started to follow that through the years. There was a gentleman that did research and basically said, hey, if you pull 4% from your portfolio every single year, adjusting slightly for inflation, then you have the ability to make this last for over 30 years. And that's a big thing for a lot of people wanting to retire. So they stick with the 4% rules. Now, I like the idea of it. It completely removes emotion out of the equation because some people say, well, do I have enough to retire? And then from there, okay, well, is this money going to last? The market's up, the market's down. What do I do? Maybe I spend less. Maybe I spend more. That removes all of that emotion and the concerns there. You know, as I mentioned, the research shows that it should last you for the 30 years. Now, you do have to be careful. You can't put it all on Tesla and hope that it's all going to work out. You may have a lot of money or you may not have anything left at the end of the plan. But really, let's look at the cons, though, because if you are overspending and maybe you just happen to get hit with a big bill that comes about and you're set on a 4% rule, that could force you to overspend in those years. That could easily create a massive issue there. What we talk about here with clients with Jazz is also the go-go and the slow-go years. Well, this kind of depletes the idea of that because you now have a 4% rule instead of maybe a 6% in the early years and a 4% in the later years. So you've got to really be careful with how you're looking at doing that. Then you have the percentage of portfolio or fixed dollar strategy. So you could take a percentage of the portfolio, like the 4% rule, or a fixed dollar amount. So a set amount that you're going to be taking out from your portfolio throughout the retirement years. Now, pulling a set amount sounds, again, like a great idea, though you get back to the risks there with risks of overspending, especially during a downturn if you're taking a fixed dollar amount. Let's just say that you have $1 million and you want to say, I'm going to take $70,000 a year. But there's a 20% correction in the market. Now you only have $800,000 and you're taking $70,000 a year. Some big risks there when it comes to that. Though on the other side of this, there's also the idea that you could underspend and end up having too much money, not being able to really enjoy your retirement years if the market is appreciating a lot more than you had planned. Probably one of the most popular and really I would say my favorite to talk about is the 3-bucket strategy, though putting this into actual play could cause some real problems. And I found that with clients. And so the idea with the 3-bucket strategy is you're going to have your short-term bucket, your mid-term bucket, and your long-term bucket. So then when the short-term bucket gets a little bit low, then you're going to refill that with your mid-term bucket. And then you're going to refill your mid-term bucket with your long-term bucket. And overall, if I draw this out, you're going to be like, wow, that's a really great approach. I love that. And I love the idea of it. The problem is when you put it into play, what ends up happening is we go back to the market risk equation, and it really gives you a false sense of security with market risk because you think, okay, I have some conservative dollars or short-term dollars to live on. But then if you're spending those short-term dollars, now you need to replenish the short-term with the midterm. And if you do that, then you're needing to replenish the midterm with the long-term. And the problem with that is, again, going back to if you have $1 million and you have a 20% market drop, you're still having to sell at a low point with the long-term dollars to replenish those midterm, and then with the midterm to replenish the short term. So there's some real problems when it comes to this. Not only that, really the biggest problem with all of this is tax strategy. If you're looking at the 3-bucket strategy, you have a taxable account, you have a pre-tax IRA, and you have a Roth account or a tax-free account. Well, which bucket is which? The fact is that they may be all mixed together and doing different things. And so you've really got to think through this on how you would want to go about that approach. So it sounds good on paper, but potentially may not be the best one for you. Guardrails is the new one that's really gaining momentum. Sure, it's been around for quite some time, but it is really becoming a hot topic, and rightfully so, because Guardrails at least builds in something now that says, okay, the market's up, you can spend a little bit more and enjoy your retirement. The market's down, you're going to have to spend a little bit less and cut back on your lifestyle. That's hard to do though. Let's just be honest. So if you're going through retirement years and you're saying, hey, I'm going to sit here and enjoy my retirement, but then the market takes the dip, what happens in those years? Maybe you've already said, you know what, next year we're going to plan a vacation with some of our good friends and it's not paid for yet, but then the market takes that dip. How do you adjust for this? There's a lot of problems with the guardrails that people aren't thinking through because it could create the opportunity for you to be forced into overspending and bypassing the guardrails that are there. It is something that is put into play to at least give you an idea and a model and could help if you are comfortable with making those adjustments. But again, it kind of almost goes back to the 4% rule of the what if happens. So what if something happens such as a big market pullback and then you have a massive expense such as healthcare or something else that comes into play that you were not expecting? Well, then you end up overspending during those years, and that could definitely be detrimental for your retirement plan. So now let's get to the one that I feel is truly one of the best setups and the best scenario for withdrawal strategy. It's the one that I am now pushing clients to and really encouraging them to make sure that they're doing this the right way. And it sounds ultra simple, and it really is made to be more simple than anything to make sure that you are comfortable in getting through your retirement years and having the dollars. But at the same time, you must make sure that you are doing this without the emotion involved, because if you have emotion involved, it could really derail this. And that is a 2-bucket strategy. 2 buckets here, you're going to have conservative and you're going to have growth. Now, when it comes to the conservative bucket, yes, you could say, okay, I'm going to have a little bit of, let's say, a money market account in there because as it sits today, depending on the account you're in, money markets might get 4%. If the Fed lowers rates, you might only get 1%. So you're going to need to increase your bond exposure at that point. So it may have some money market, it may have some cash, it may have some bonds. But overall, you're going to build this out to be much more conservative. And if the market has a large drop, that is the bucket that you are going to pull from. On the other side, you have growth dollars. The growth dollars are hopefully going to appreciate and continue to grow for you for the long term with the plan. And it goes back to what everybody says, buy low, sell high. Well, if we're selling high, if the market's really running up and continuing to run up, you don't really need to mess with this conservative bucket over here. Let it be. But then on the other side, you're going to want to then pull from the growth bucket. The growth bucket does need to be diversified. You don't want to solely focus on something like large cap stocks. Large cap stocks have had a real tear and been fun to watch. Though if you go back to 2022, they were one of the hardest hit stocks when it came to portfolios. So you want to make sure that there is some diversification here, creating some opportunity, but also knowing that you're not overexposing yourself with any of the risk. Now, the one thing that you are going to need to address with the 2-bucket strategy is a bit of a rebalance. At times, you're going to need to make sure that there's enough dollars in the conservative bucket that if there were to be a large market downturn, you would be able to have enough dollars there to still pull from. So if the market continues to run up consistently, you're pulling from those dollars. But if the conservative bucket is not keeping up enough with inflation, you might have to shift a little bit over. The idea here would be to have between 3 to 5 years in a conservative bucket, the remaining in the long-term growth funds or in the growth portfolio, allowing you to play both sides of the fence on this. So those are different withdrawal strategies. There's a lot of other things that come into play with withdrawals. There's a lot of other ideas that people have as well. But let me know what your thoughts are on your favorite one.